Growing up, a waffle used to be crispy.
That's crispy.
But for some reason today, I can't find a crispy waffle to save my life. And of course, one of waffle's classic pairings is fried chicken. But what I'm really interested in showing you today is how to make waffles crispy and then pairing them with like an umami-packed Korean fried chicken. One of the ultimate expressions of sweet and savory. This is Korean fried chicken and waffles. Now there's a few tricks to make waffles both crispy on the outside and fluffy on the inside. One of them borrows from a pancake method, which is separating the eggs. We're gonna crack it over a wide bowl, capture the egg whites, just pass the yolk back and forth. Egg whites go in there, yolk goes into a measuring cup. That's where we're gonna add the liquid, so I'm gonna use the measuring cup to be able to measure out the liquids. And repeat it again. We're gonna set that off to the side. And immediately we're gonna whip these into a light, fluffy foam that's gonna create that fluffy airiness inside. Big whisk, wide bowl, cold eggs, and we're just gonna beat it like whipped cream. I like to start it down here like tilted, go back and forth really fast. That's gonna quickly whip air and transform them into like a loose foam. Once you start getting it foamy, then we're gonna roll it around the bowl. Again, the bigger the bowl, the faster this will whip. Now what we're looking for is soft peaks. And even though that looks like a soft peak, right, that's not it. We gotta keep going. That's not really it either. Keep going. And then once you get close, you can just start dialing it in. A few whips at a time. Pull it up. That's nice soft. Now we're gonna keep this cold in the refrigerator. Now the other three liquid ingredients, buttermilk, butter, which we have to throw in the microwave to melt, and vanilla. 4 tablespoons of butter. Just gonna slice it up so it melts a little quicker. So we're using 2 fats, butter for flavor, a little bit of oil just to kind of help seal in that crisp. We're gonna need 1 3/4 cup of buttermilk. Whisk that egg in there. A little bit of vanilla extract. I do like a cap. About 50 grams of the oil, and melt our butter. 30 seconds, swirl it about halfway through. Then there's always just a few little bits left. We just swirl to finish melting it all. We don't want it like broken or too hot. And then add the butter. Now, that's our wet ingredients. Let's work on the dry ingredients. So we got our scale out. Set it to grams. We start with all-purpose flour, 240 grams. Now here's one of the secrets. To get that sort of like shattery, crisp exterior crunch that we're looking for, cornstarch, about 25 grams, or it's 2 cups of flour and 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. 2 teaspoons of baking powder, half teaspoon of baking soda, and then 40 grams or 3 tablespoons granulated sugar. All right, so now we got our dry mix, our wet mix, and our whites. First thing we're gonna do, mix in the wet to the dry. Get everything out. And now here's the secret. All we're gonna do is mix it as little as possible. I'm gonna start to, like literally not mix it, I'm just gonna start to fold it. Turn the bowl, cut it in half, and fold it. Lumps are okay, over mixing is not. See how it's kind of lumpy? That's good. Now it's mostly worked in, there's still some dry bits throughout, but we still have some working to do. And that involves adding the whites to this mix in like 3 segments, gently folding it in. Notice the technique, it's not mixing, it's sort of scraping the sides and folding over. Then we can add a little bit more. Once it's just about incorporated, we can go ahead and add the rest. And even just kind of turning it, you can feel the air in the batter. This goes into the fridge until we're ready to use it. Now, I know a lot of you probably pay rent, and I bet not one of you earn anything in return for it. But our sponsor today, Built, is changing that. With a loyalty program for renters that transforms rent payments you pay every month, oftentimes our biggest expense, into valuable rewards. When you pay rent through Built, you earn Built points. And there's no cost to join, and you can start earning rewards on rent no matter where you live. These points then can be transferred to your favorite airlines and hotels or used towards future rent payments. You can use them for Lyft rides, student loan payments, much more. Built is also unlocking experiences and VIP treatments around your neighborhood, like complimentary add-ons at Built Partners and comedy and dining experiences. Built transforms the spending you're already doing every month into an opportunity to earn rewards and unlock the best that your neighborhood has to offer. And for credibility, Built's been ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy. So sign up in the link in my description or scan the QR code floating up on the screen right now. Make sure you use my URL so they know that I sent you. Now let's get into some chicken. Now, for me, when it comes to chicken and waffles, there better not be a bone in my chicken. So here we have some chicken tenders that have been soaking in a delicious little bath that I prepared yesterday. To a large bowl, I add the chicken tenders and then added enough buttermilk to coat them. Then I'm gonna go in with like a generous amount of salt to make this almost like a buttermilk brine. And then I'm going to add a tablespoon of one of the core ingredients of Korean fried chicken, gochujang, along with some onion powder and some garlic powder. And we're gonna get those all tossed together and let that sit in the fridge overnight. And that takes us to now. Now you can let this marinate as little as an hour. But the longer that chicken absorbs that marinade, the more tender and juicy it's gonna be. And now, when it comes to the dredging process, we're going with more of like a southern fried. We're not gonna do that shatter crust of the Korean fried chicken, but we're gonna flavor it with the Korean sauce. But when it comes to like a southern fried, there is the school that sort of wrings the buttermilk out of the chicken tenders before adding it to the dredge, then to a batter, then back into a dredge. And there's a school that doesn't do anything. They just take it out of the buttermilk, into the flour, and that same process. Both of those ways have pros and cons. I'm gonna show you both and what is good about one and good about the other. Control, that's what I wanna give you. Now the dredge is gonna be pretty basic. Throw in about 2 cups of all-purpose flour, roughly, this is not a science like baking. 1 cup of cornstarch. We're going a couple tablespoons of baking powder. Kinda helps give it a lighter crust. The cornstarch gives it more crispiness. A big pinch of salt. We don't wanna go too crazy with salt. The gochujang sauce we're gonna make has a lot of that like kind of umami soy. Then some garlic powder, some onion powder, and some white pepper. Get that mixed in. And then we're gonna make the batter. So it's gonna go flour, batter, back into the flour. So we're gonna go 2 eggs, about a half cup of water, about a 1/4 cup of vodka. Vodka evaporates quicker than water. So adding it into a batter helps it get a little crispy. Then I'm gonna take about a half cup of the dredge and we'll start to whisk it. Now one thing I wanna do is usually you're looking for like a certain consistency on the batter, right? But since we're gonna be taking that chicken that's dredged in flour into it, we're gonna be continuously thickening the batter over the course of the dredging process. So I wanna make it slightly thinner than I normally would. Still thick enough to coat it, but thin enough to give it some leeway for some more flour to get in there over the course of the dredge. So now I've got a nice variety here. I'm gonna do a few both ways. So I'm just gonna sort of wring out the excess, get them on a paper towel. Now what this is gonna do is create a much more lighter, more delicate crust, but it's not gonna be like the most earth-shatteringly crispy thing you've ever had. Just give them a quick dry on top. I still got some water over here in case the batter gets a little bit too thick from the chicken, but now we'll do the second method, which is not wringing it out, taking it straight from the batter into the dredge. So we're gonna go in, and since we haven't dropped any in, you can sort of just hit it with some droplets. So now what we're first just doing is dredging it, right? Then from there, we go into the batter. Out of the batter, back into the flour. And now sometimes you see people like grinding and squeezing it. What I wanna do is just kind of like toss it roughly, right? I don't wanna squeeze it. When you squeeze it, you sort of like squeeze that coating off a little bit. And once that coating's off, you can't get it back on. So what I'm gonna do is just gently toss it, kind of like poking at it with my fingers. And then what you get is this like craggly little bits. That liquid mixed with the flour creates these little chunks that adhere to the chicken. And you could tell that's gonna fry off beautifully. Now we can take our dried chicken, add that to the dredge. Now you notice already at the dredge stage, it gets a little thinner of a dredge. Dust them off, into the batter. When you're dropping the other ones into the batter, they're a little bit more delicate. These you can kind of toss in, get them nicely coated into the flour. Same deal. Once I've got them all breaded, roll them over one more time, line them up. Now what we're gonna do is just let this chill. I wanna let that breading almost dry up, fully absorb into the chicken. Next up, a few garnishes. Some green onions for color, some sesame seed, some maple syrup, of course. So for this, I'm gonna cut it on the bias down here. And on that angle, I'm just gonna cut slices. Now onto the gochujang glaze. Again, we've got our gochujang, fermented chili paste, 3 tablespoons of that. Now, of course, if you don't like Korean chili spice, like this is kind of on the spicier side. Remember, you could always just make it plain. You could add hot honey on top, whatever you want to do. I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of maple syrup. Usually it's honey, but since we're doing this, we're gonna do some maple syrup. 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 to 1.5 tablespoons of rice vinegar, depending on how zippy you like it. 1 tablespoon sesame oil, then 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. And whisk that together. Balanced, it's not like overwhelmingly salty from the soy sauce. It's not overwhelmingly like hot. And you got that pronounced gochujang flavor to it. The only other thing we're gonna do, we're gonna cook that down, help dissolve that sugar, and we're gonna cook it in some garlic. So what I'm gonna do is cut some big chunks like that, lay them flat, and they'll mince up once you smash them. Now before we go and cook this, obviously we need a waffle maker, right? This is the All-Clad, it's a 4-section waffle maker and it's deep. That's what I looked for. I didn't want a shallow waffle. I want a thick, crispy, fluffy on the inside waffle. Set it up on a sheet tray like this, just so inevitably when the waffle mix shoots out the back, you've got a nice station to capture it. And then I've got my maple syrup in a little container like this, so I can just pop this in the microwave, warm it up before serving. On this machine, we're preheating that bad boy to 7. Its highest setting, we want it max crispy. Now we can wrap it up. In a small pan over medium-high heat, we're gonna add a little bit of oil, and then we're gonna toss in that garlic. We wanna cook that garlic until it's lightly browned and nicely fragrant. Once that garlic starts developing some nice color, then we're gonna go ahead and add in the glaze. Stir it around, cook it for about 3 to 5 minutes until it's nice and thick and glossy, and then we can just let it cool until it's ready to use. So we're gonna double fry this chicken. So for the first fry, we wanna heat that oil to around 340 to 350 degrees. You could go a little bit higher, knowing that once you add that chicken right out of the fridge, it's gonna drop that temperature of the oil. First up, we're gonna try the super craggly chicken. And as you can see, it's developed these really pronounced clusters that have sort of attached to the chicken. We wanna slowly drop those into the oil, and we're gonna cook them for about 5-6 minutes until they're crisp and lightly golden. Since we're gonna fry them a second time at a higher temperature, we wanna avoid overcooking them now, otherwise they'll get too dark after the second fry. Once they're lightly golden, we're gonna pull them out of the oil, transfer them to a wire rack, and we're sort of looking for the moisture remaining in the chicken to soften up that crispy exterior. And at first we wanna just do this in batches. 3, 4 at a time, no more. That's gonna ensure each chicken is perfectly cooked. Once you've fried all of that chicken once, now we're gonna jack the heat up to around 365 to 380 for the second fry. The second time around, we can go a little bit larger batches, but you still don't wanna go crazy. And once you add that chicken at this higher temperature, you're gonna see a lot of steam releasing from the pot. That is that excess moisture we allowed to sort of release before that second fry. This second fry should evaporate that, and what should remain is extremely crispy chicken. Now you see, that looks more like a, traditional Southern fried chicken tender. This one's a lot more intense, right? It's just like a force field. This one's got a little bit of softness to it. Not that it's not crunchy, but it's a more delicate crunch. This is a more intense crunch. If I want chicken tenders, I probably want the more delicate ones. If I want fried chicken with that gochujang glaze, I probably want the crunchier version. So now we've got our waffle mix. Waffle iron's hot. I'm gonna take some avocado oil, some butter. We just need to grease it a little bit. And then this batter should make 6 big crispy waffles. So we're gonna go ahead and put 4 on right now. 1 cup in each slot should do the trick. And then close it up. Like I said, it's gonna start coming out the back, but we're prepared for that. I probably put a little too much in. We're gonna let this sit here for about 4 to 5 minutes and then give it a check. Do not open it yet. Starting to smell an aroma change. I'm thinking we might be able to take a peek. What a beautiful sight.
That's crispy.
Crispy but light and fluffy inside. That's a beautiful thing. We're gonna go with the super crunchy, which is still crunchy. Max 3 pieces per person. Pour in that gochujang sauce and then give them a toss until they're nicely glazed in that sauce. One waffle, another waffle, one piece of chicken, then a little bit of our warm honey. Next up, some of our green onions, our sesame seeds, and of course, powdered sugar. See that cakier sort of batter? That's what this method gets you. See how this looks like a much more normal chicken? Much lighter batter around the inside. Still amazing. And then still crispy, even after being sauced. Is it breakfast? Is it dinner? I don't know. That's why they invented brunch. But if you want to make this, recipe's gonna be linked down in the description. I also encourage you to join my cooking school over on Patreon. It's interactive, we do live streams, I give you homework. I kick some butt over there. Links down there. That's all that I have today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself and go feed yourself.